Hi, this is David with David's Tutorials, and I'd like to talk to you today about the power of daydreams. Now, daydreams are really nothing more than flights of imagination. And who among us hasn't had a nice flight of imagination? Basically, a daydream is when you let yourself get distracted from what else is going on around you by taking a trip in your mind, this imagination, and you're just going somewhere else. And I would be willing to bet that most of us out there listening to this have gotten in trouble, especially when we were little, about daydreaming. So somebody says, "David, pay attention," or whatever your name is. I'm sure most of you out there, your name isn't David, but whatever your name is, pay attention. And you kind of wake up and say, "Oh, I'm sorry." Of course, when you're little, everything that you do is some sort of wrong behavior, and you feel you have misbehaved in some way. And that's not always the case. What I found out is that daydreams are pretty much like any other ability, capability, interest that you have, in that they can be abused or they can be used. And my suggestion here is that you harness the power of your daydreams to make it something you imagine and make it productive. Now, let me talk about when I was, back in the 10th grade. How old were we in the 10th grade? Probably right about 16 years old. What an age that is. You remember when you were 16 years old, or have you got there yet? Anyway, I was sitting in 10th grade biology class, and the teacher, I don't remember his name. I'm going to just call him Mr. Stevens, which wasn't his name, just for a handle so I can refer to him. But Mr. Stevens was really a rather boring teacher. As a teacher myself, I have learned that there's really no such thing as a subject that's too boring. There's really a subject that's not interesting enough. The teacher isn't making it interesting enough. And so Mr. Stevens had not learned how to make 10th grade biology very interesting. But the thing is, I was kind of interested in biology. I was a budding, maybe science geek at that point. And so I enjoyed reading the book. So I would get into class and he would be going through the roll call and the administrative things that he found to do to take up time in the class. And then he would start going over what the lesson was. Well, by this time, I had gotten into the book and I had read pretty much the whole chapter. And when he was getting into the topic of today's lesson, he would be referring to the chapter and I would be most of the way through it. And of course, I would be focused on it. Now, I have an earlier video about formation flying and zone focus, and I'm going to put a link to it right up there in the upper right-hand corner, and you can go watch that if you haven't watched it already, or you can watch it again if you want to. And zone focus is when you are focused on the thing you are doing to the point that everything else goes away. Well, I was kind of in the zoned focus at this point. I was in biology class and I was focused on biology, but everything else went away, and Mr. Stevens could see this. And he wasn't real happy that I wasn't paying close attention to what was going on in the class. And so he would call on me and ask me for an answer to a question. Well, by this point in life, I had learned that when I took my trips of imagination, my daydreams, my zone focus episodes, to save about 10% of my attention for what was going on around me. And so when he called my name, he didn't have to call it more than about twice to get my attention. And so when he called my name, I could play back my mental tape recorder and hear what the question was. Well, of course, I had just read that in the book. And so I had the answer right there, and it totally frustrated Mr. Stevens that he could never stump me with a question that I didn't know the answer to. And as I remember it, I wound up getting mostly A's in that class. I think I got one B. in the 6 grading periods that he had. But I got an A overall in the biology class simply because I liked the topic. But in his class, I did a lot of daydreaming. Now, at age 16, boys have a problem with odors. Yeah, they have a problem because at that age, a year or two before, and at that age specifically, they can smell the gasoline and they can smell the perfume. And so that's a big distraction for whatever else is going on in life. And I had that problem as well. So sometimes when I was sitting in biology class, I might be thinking of Diane or Shirley or Babs or, whoever the girl was over in the next class. And if I wasn't thinking about that, I might be thinking about cars. Of course, at age 16, you just get a driver's license. And so it's a distraction from what else is going on in class. And it would cause daydreams. Now, later on, I began to learn to harness the power of daydreaming. One specific instance I remember, I was in California. I was with the Air Force. I was going to KC-135 upgrade training in Merced, California. And I was getting ready to go with a bunch of friends over to the Sierras to try snow skiing. I have never done this before in my life. And so I looked it up. I think I did in the library because there was no internet at the time. And I discovered that snow skiing, you have to lean forward, and you should always have your downhill ski in front of your uphill ski. And I thought about that. And so I did some daydreaming about how to do that. And we went over to, Bear Valley or some other place in the Sierras from Merced, and I tried snow skiing. And of course, I didn't have any equipment. I had to rent it right there. Of course, they had it for rent. And I went out there and snow skiing for the very first time with no lessons. I actually did a creditable job. I didn't fall down as much as I thought I was going to, but it was through the power of daydreams and imagination that I was able to become better at snow skiing without ever having gone snow skiing. Now, having grown up in Florida, I did a lot of water skiing. And water skiing is not like snow skiing. And I found that out very quickly because when I first got on the snow skis, I had to overcome the habit patterns I had formed as a water skier. And in water skiing, basically, you lean back, not forward. In snow skiing, it's the other way around. So anyway, it was the power of daydreams that enabled me to become a better skier a lot more quickly. And there are many other instances where my power of daydreaming enabled me to do things better than I otherwise would have. And this is what I'd like to recommend to you. Harness the power of your daydreams. Make it into your imagination. Don't let it distract you from what you need to be doing. But if you are not, let's say, driving a car or attending a speech by your boss, go ahead and let yourself imagine what if. And that's where the power of daydreams come in. What if? Now, one of the biggest places where this can have an impact is when you're in a driving situation. Everybody who drives needs to harness the power of daydreams and ask themselves, well, what if this happened? Think about it in advance. And here's the key to the power of daydreams is if you think about things in advance, things that might happen, then if they ever do happen, you'll be ready. You'll be ready to handle the situation. Driving, you're going down the road. What happens if that person over there suddenly pulls out in front of me? If you're not paying attention and they suddenly pull out in front of you, it's going to take you by surprise, and you're going to have to rely on your autonomic reactions, which may not be the right thing to do. But if you think about it in advance, you think, well, what if that person pulls out in front of me? Okay, I'm looking in my rearview mirror. There's nobody in the other lane. I could very quickly switch lanes and you're just thinking about all these sorts of things. The power of daydreams can be an asset. Of course, they can be a detriment if you let them, so just don't let them be a detriment. And that's pretty much all I've got for this video. But I just wanted to tell everybody that daydreams, you may think that they're a negative thing, and they can be. But just like everything else, they can also be an asset. And all you have to do is help them make an asset. So that's it for now. Give me a thumbs up if you thought this was a great video, and I will be very encouraged to keep making these videos. Leave me a comment down in the comment section below. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much. I appreciate every single one of you. And as always, if you're not a subscriber, why not go ahead right now and click that subscribe button and then the bell icon so YouTube will let you know when we post another great video right here on David's Tutorials and Vlog channel. Meantime, everybody have a wonderful day. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.